Okay, hello, welcome to my channel. Now in this video, I'm going to answer this question that students do fail a lot. And that's maybe because they haven't watched this video yet or they haven't stayed to the very end. And the question is this: what is the square root of 4? Well, I'm just going to answer this real quick by saying that the square root of 4 is in fact equal to 2. And 2 is the only answer to this question. A lot of students do say that the answer to this is positive or negative 2. But at the end of this argument, right, I'm sure that should be taken away. Now, I'm going to start by using the following tools. Now, the first one here is that if we have the square root of x squared, the answer to that is just going to become the absolute value of x. And by the absolute value of x, I mean x between two bars. Okay, so keeping in mind, now we want to prove this. I want to show you that the square root of 4 is equal to 2. But first of all, I want you to consider this equation. But before I come down to that, please, if you're new to my channel, please do what to press the subscribe button, all right, and then turn on notifications so that you get notified whenever I post similar content like this. And if you're watching this on my Facebook page, do what to like and follow the page and follow up my content for your matrix and math help. Great. Okay, so let's put down the equation. Consider this equation. The equation is that x squared is equal to 4. Good. So looking at that equation that x squared is equal to 4, our aim here is going to be, what we are going to do here is that we are going to solve for the value of x in this equation. Take note that our primary goal is not in looking for what the value of x is, but rather we want to find out if the square root of 4 is actually 2 or more than 2. More than just 2, maybe 2 or negative 2, right? So I'm going to do that. We are going to discover that in the process of trying to solve for this equation of x squared is equal to 4. Okay, great. So looking at this equation, let's just say we want to solve for it, for x. The first thing we'd like to do is to take the square root of both sides, right? Because that x has been squared. So I will start by saying, let us take the square root of both sides. So by taking the square root of x squared, take note, on the left hand side here, we have the square root of x squared. The square root of x squared, look at the first tool. The square root of x squared is said to be what? The absolute value of x. So on this left hand side, I'm just going to say that this is going to give us the absolute value of x. Good. On the right hand side, we have the square root of 4. Well, by the square root of 4, assuming we don't know that the answer here is 2 already, or you don't still believe it, let's just do something here. Let's do a proof. This is going to be a proof. Though I'm not writing proof down, I don't want to consume a lot of space. Good. Now, I'm going to prove this. I'm going to do a proof by what we call contradiction method. Okay, by that I mean, I'm going to write a wrong statement and I'm going to assume it to be correct. Okay, I'm going to write a wrong statement here and I'm going to assume that wrong statement is actually true. Now, the contradiction will be that if we are using the wrong statement, which we assume to be right, if we are using it to solve and then we get a wrong conclusion or a contradiction at the end, then that means that statement we assumed earlier was actually a wrong statement. Good. And that is what I'm going to do here. So I'm going to assume that the square root of 4 is positive or negative 2. Take note, that is wrong, but let's just assume it is right, as a lot of people believe. So let's say that the square root of 4 is positive or negative 2. Okay, take note of my statement, my language, positive or negative 2. So what that tells us is that the absolute value of x is positive 2 or the absolute value of x is negative 2. From this place, positive or negative 2. Great. So if the absolute value of x is positive 2, the third tool tells us that if the absolute value of x is equal to 2, actually I knew that I was going to get to this point. That was why I wrote the 2 first, because I didn't want us to be going back and forth. Good. So if the absolute value of x is equal to 2, then that means that x can be positive or negative 2. So let me just do a little division like this. So that means that x is equal to positive or negative 2. That makes sense. Or, on the other hand, if the absolute value of x is equal to negative 2, look at the second tool. The second tool tells us that the absolute value of x can only be bigger than or equal to 0. But here we have that the absolute value of x is equal to negative 2. This is wrong. This is not correct. So this is the contradiction. This is a wrong statement. The absolute value cannot be a negative number. No matter what we put inside here, provided what we put inside is a real number, as I assumed earlier, the absolute value here cannot give us a negative number. So this is the contradiction. And where did we get this negative 2 from? We got this negative 2 by assuming that the square root of 4 is positive or negative 2. So that means that negative 2 is not supposed to be a solution to square root of 4. Therefore, the square root of 4 is equal to 2 only. Because if we wrote only 2 here, this is where we are going to land, which will make sense. But assuming that it could be positive or negative 2, which was actually the wrong statement, which I said we should assume is the correct thing, it led us to saying that the absolute value of x is negative 2, which is actually now a contradiction. So it is wrong to say that the absolute value of x is positive or negative 2. Instead, the absolute value of x is just 2 and 2 alone. Now let me clean this up and give you a similar or another kind of proof to this. Assuming that the square root of 4 is positive or negative 2, that means let's just put it down that the square root of 4 is positive or negative 2. Okay, what that means is that if we write negative 2, I can simply say, oh, that is the same thing as the square root of 4. And if we write square root of 4, I can say, oh, that is the same thing as 2. Now, this is what we call transitivity property in mathematics, and that is to say, if A, let me put this down in red, that is to say, if A is equal to B, and B is equal to C, then that simply tells us that A is equal to C. So what that means is that negative 2 is equal to positive 2. But this is totally wrong, alright? You can't say that negative 2 and positive 2 are the same. Look at this on the number line. This is negative 2, this is positive 2. Saying that these two things are the same means that these two positions are at the same point, but they are not at the same point, obviously. So that means that this statement is actually wrong. So you can't say that the square root of 4 is positive or negative 2. Alright? Now, that's just it. Okay, that's just it. As time goes on, I would continue giving out similar stuff like this, all right, just to strengthen your belief or your understanding that the square root of 4 is just 2 and not the two answers as many people claim to be. Okay, so if you like this content, I just want you to go ahead and click the subscribe button and the like, comment. I want to see your solution. I want to see your question, your argument, your disagreement, all right, and also follow my page or my channel for a lot of other content or for subsequent videos which will back this up. Thanks for watching.